Parents are the most important people to us in the world, the ones we're especially dependent on when we are young and vulnerable. But as relationships change, so does the one with our parents. Can we really claim to be fulfilling the rights of our parents even when things are difficult or strained between them and us? For this and more, stay tuned to Women's AM. Assalamu alaikum, my dear sisters, and welcome to Women's AM. It's the show that brings you news, discussion, tips, and much more. We're live from our London studios, and in today's shows, we have our roundup on the day's stories of interest in News Bites. Also, in our second segment, we'll be discussing the rights of parents in her views, as well as looking at some of Allah's beautiful names in our last segment. I'm your host, Ayan, and joining me on the panel today, we have the lovely sisters Liz, Zainab, and our special guest, Sister Aisha. Assalamu alaikum, sisters.
Walaikum salam.
How are you all doing this morning? Good, alhamdulillah. Well, I was just thinking about, you know, how when we were kids, we always had, like, you know, these different visions and role models, and I thought sometimes things that we used to have as role models were a bit quirky, so I wanted to know who or what was your role model growing up as a kid? So I'm going to ask you, Zainab, first.
Growing up, my mother made sure that we kind of read a lot of books and things like that. So we were a big Tintin family. I don't know if everyone is familiar with Tintin. It's basically this, I think it's from Belgium, this young guy, and he's basically an adventurer and a private detective and stuff, and he goes around the world and does all these kind of investigations and stuff. It's really good. Yeah.
What about you, Liz? Who did you kind of...
You know, I was so fickle as a child. It was like every week it was, you know, somebody different. But actually, and I know this sounds a bit sad actually, but there was one constant role model that I used to look up for. It was actually my cousin, and she was really beautiful, and, you know, she was like really popular, and, you know, had like a good job and drove a nice car. And it was really funny because her name was Dawn, and when I used to meet people for the first time, I used to say, yeah, my middle name's Dawn. And that's what everyone calls me, so you can call me Dawn if you want.
Oh, that's so cute. What about you, Sister Aisha?
Oh, for me, I don't know whether it's good to say or not, but it was Kylie Minogue. I loved to sing when I was little, so it was about being a pop star. But my mum and all my family wanted me to be a doctor, so I used to say, well, I'll be a singing doctor.
Oh, that's so sweet. But then again, back in those days, she had a very wholesome look, didn't she? So I think a lot of girls used to like her.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to sound a bit weird. I'm a person who has a love of food, and I think especially food that's not made at home. So my role model when I was younger, around 8, was Leonardo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I was a bit of a weirdo like that. I like how he was ditzy and always thought about food, so I thought, yeah, that's my kind of person.
He loved his pizzas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we do like our pizzas in our house as well. So jazakallah khairan for that, sisters. Let's go to our first segment of the show now, News Bites. In this segment, we take a look at the day's stories of interest and we discuss what's been happening around the world. Remember that this is a live show, so we'd love for you to join in on our discussions about the articles. Do call in, the number will be on the screens. So, Zainab, what have you got for us this morning?
Quite an annoying article from the BBC, are female-friendly restaurants sexist? It's an interesting article in that it kind of covers the perspectives of 2 other people who've written about this topic, and it's looking at these major brands, major restaurants that have created these other branches that are basically targeted towards, apparently targeted towards women. So apparently they feature smaller she-sized steak portions, so smaller portions for women, mirrors on dessert menus so that women can reapply their lipstick, and a sexy decor, apparently. And then another branch, they have a catwalk where women who are basically scantily clothed perform for the restaurant's female and male guests. And I'm not even going to talk to you about the ad campaign for one of the other branches. Let's just say it's not exactly women-orientated. I was knocked back by this. You know, we have this whole culture and discussion of how women are treated in society. There's other articles that we've done about you know, the woman who set up that that blogging site for people to enter in, to say what kind of abuse they faced and how shocked she was about how the great span from very young to very old in the workplace, the street, wherever. And then they're doing something like this, and it makes you question how that still the view of women is still so bad, because this is marketed towards women. How is that marketed towards women?
Well, it's funny, we were talking about it earlier, weren't we? And I said I'd like to know how exactly the market research was conducted, that, you know, this is what they came up with, you know, supposedly.
It's basically a group of guys probably in a room kind of sort of.
But you know what I find funny is that they would think that a catwalk is something to have when you're having, you know, dinner at a restaurant or something. Usually people, you know, are supposed to be interacting during this period. Is this, you know, more to take away our attention from one another and, you know, give us another distraction? It's a bit weird.
But I guess they thought, it's entertainment, so who's better at giving entertainment than some naked, you know, some scantily clothed women? Disgusting. So there was another, one of the other women who wrote about this was saying that this is essentially really a venue to pick up women. Another one made a really good point, saying what women really want is for their safety and for their safety to be valued and for their minds and bodies to be respected. And she's basically hit the nail on the head with this issue, isn't it? That this is what we really want. It's an extremely offensive view of women, and it's essentially exploitation again, and not even for the people they're supposed to be targeting. The whole thing doesn't make any sense. It's just, again, objectifying women. And, you know, this is the thing, Islam has no view of, you know, a woman in this way. We'll never let a woman, you know, or anyone degrade a woman in that way. And for this to, even anything on that level to exist, you know, in our Islamic history, of Sahabiya, stuff like that would never happen. They were never used for their...
But it goes back again to the way things are, isn't it? That, you know, if you've got to sell something, you've got to use a woman's body to sell it. You know, and you see this everywhere, whether it's cars, toothpaste, even though yogurt is, like, you know, sexualized when you watch it. I mean, Sister Aisha, what do you think of this article?
It's just another example of promoting the woman as to she has to beautify herself, she has to use her body and her image. And again, it's going to create a lot of pressure for the young girls, and it's something that sells, unfortunately. And it's about knowing that this is a feminist issue as well. It's about, is this how we want our young girls to be having this pressure upon, that they have to be in this sort of image in order to get some sort of attention.
Absolutely.
It gives you a great appreciation for how Islam does view the women, that they are valued for their iman, their taqwa, their intelligence. You see this, that our women weren't involved in things like that. They were, you know, scientists, they were teachers. This is the kind of things that women would do. They wouldn't participate in things like this. There's a slightly other point I wanted to make as well about this issue of segregation. So that kind of they're alluding to this thing of a woman's, you know, hangout kind of thing. And I think it's interesting that when is it okay to be segregated and when is it not okay to be segregated? And that, subhanAllah, if there's money there or if there's exploitation there, it seems to be okay. But then if this is something that comes from an Islamic value, it seems to be a problem. And I think just from the Muslim's point of view, never to get sucked into the discussion that's being had to make us feel guilty about any values that we have, and actually to understand how it works in society and how it actually prevents this kind of problem from existing.
It actually brings up a point for me. There was actually some research that took place in America, and I can't remember the name of the lady, but she was a Western lady, a Western researcher, and she basically said if you promote yourself with your body and your image, a man is just going to see you as a sex object. And when you're covered up, that person's actually going to see you and judge you and want to get to know you, as opposed to just wanting to see just the outwardly.
But that's it, isn't it? You know, that people are forced to get to know you as a person rather than just look at you, you know, for what you are on the outside. Liz, what have you got for us this morning?
Well, my article, again, it's kind of in the same vein, really, and it's also from the BBC. The headline reads, "The Strange Demands of Life as a Cheerleader." And this is kind of on the back of 3 lawsuits that are being pursued this year to do with sexism and, you know, kind of sexually charged environments and discrimination and things like that in the National Football League among the cheerleaders. And it's kind of interesting the way it's laid out, because it's laid out as, you know, perks, so like perk of the job and the problem with this job. And so, you know, for example, you know, one of them is you know, a national stage for women who are dancers who are in this industry. They can get up and promote themselves and dance and have a good time, supposedly. This is the perk. And then the problem with that is that their bodies, their appearance is so heavily scrutinised that they're actually subjected to really degrading and humiliating tests of their outward appearance. One of them, particularly distasteful, is called the jiggle test, in which they jump, and if parts that are not supposed to jiggle, then they're given a certain amount of time to fix that, i.e. lose weight, or they have to sit out the next game, which they'll then lose the money for that game, so it has financial repercussions as well. And to me, you know, reading these, you know, so-called perks and problems, I couldn't actually see any of the perks. You know, I mean, I think it's all kind of, you know, this so-called national stage. You know, again, as we were saying with Zainab's story, it's just another way to promote this image of women where your worth is attached to your outward appearance and how you can, you know, how you can kind of use that and buy into this objectification of women. And it's really, you know, it's really actually a sad story, because I think there must be millions and millions of American teenage girls who envy these cheerleaders and aspire, you know, to be them and be like them. But when you actually read the reality of their lives, even financially, they're really taken for a ride. You know, another example, the clubs, they have to, as part of their contract, pose for these calendars, these charity calendars, which are sold, and then there's an opportunity for them to make a profit out of that. But what you don't hear is that actually they have to buy their portion of calendars and sell them themselves, so they absorb all the risk, and if they don't sell the calendars, then they lose money. So, you know, there really is no kind of silver lining here. And some of the, you know, the handbooks that some of the clubs issue them, even things like it tells them, you know, don't overload your fork with food. You know, it just put small pieces of food on your fork. Basically, remember you're kind of in the public eye all the time, and this is how you have to behave and that kind of thing.
It's unfeminine.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So it's
because it's unfeminine to eat and enjoy your food and
eat too much at one time.
But you know what? Again, I think this does kind of bring me back to, you know, Islam, the way we present ourselves, the way we dress. You know, we look at you know, the garments that we wear, the hijab, the jilbab. You know, these are garments of modesty, but they protect us from this. They protect us from this degradation and objectification. You know, and as you were saying, people have to engage with us on an intellectual level rather than it being about appearances, which I think is a healthy, you know, it's a healthy way to...
But then you kind of see why a lot of young girls grow up to have sort of unrealistic aspirations as well, and that leads to a lot of problems. You know, you see girls with eating disorders, and you see them with even psychological disorders, and you think, well, you know, my goodness, you know, the society and the images and these sorts of jobs that exist don't really help the situation much. I mean, Zainab, I know you kind of touched upon a few of these things in your article, but what do you think about this one?
Absolutely. I think you mentioned this important word, the aspiration, that these figures are, like in one part of the article it's talking about, it's an all-American aspiring, you know, icon for all these, for all women to look up to. And really it's just a genius of business that they use these women to exploit them, essentially to attract viewers, to keep them, you know, entertained while between, you know, plays and things like that. Yeah. And it's just basically something to kind of, from a business point of view, you want more viewers as you can get. And then they convince, in a very clever way, the whole society that this is something that you should aspire to. You know, I just think it's absolutely
it's a shame outrageous. Because it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Well, Jazakallah khair for those interesting selection of articles there, sisters. And now here's a reminder of this week's competition.
This week on Women's AM, we have another exciting competition for you sisters out there. Up for grabs this week is Just Your Average Muslim book by Zia Chowdhury. For your chance to win this book, all you have to do is answer the following question. Which female warrior bravely defended the Prophet ﷺ in numerous battles? A. Aisha radiallahu anha. B. Nusayba bint Ka'b. C. Khawla bint al-Azwar. D. Halima Sadiya. To enter, email your answer A, B, C or D to womensam@islamchannel.tv along with your name and address and what you most like about Women's AM. The deadline for entries is Friday 16th May 2014 at 4 p.m. All applicants need to be over 18 and residing in the UK. Please note only one entry per person per household. A winner will be randomly selected from the correct entries and announced on Monday's show. So get entering.
We're off to a quick break now, but do stay tuned as after the break we'll be back with our main segment, Her Views, the Rights of the Parents. Don't go anywhere. Assalamu alaikum.